Hey, this is Karen. In this video we will cover the concept of equilibrium potential, resting membrane potential, ion channels, and action potential. Alright, let's start off by defining the concept of equilibrium potential, and to do so, we must understand what equilibrium means. Equilibrium just means the state of balance between two forces. When something is in its equilibrium state, there is very minimal movement, if any. A tug of war is a good example. This is because in a tug of war two people are providing force at both ends of the rope. The pulling of the rope is at equilibrium, when there is no movement even in the action of both forces existing. Similarly, in the body, ions are constantly moving through the cell membrane, and are usually in an equilibrium state, with no net diffusion. The equilibrium potential for any ion is based on the concentration inside and outside the cell. The equilibrium potential value is derived from the Nernst equation, and is as followed. Knowing the how to calculate an ion's equilibrium potential is not as important as knowing the equilibrium potential for potassium, chloride, sodium, and calcium. Here are their equilibrium potentials. The membrane potential of a cell will move towards the equilibrium potential of the most permeable ion. Membrane potential, on the other hand, is when there is a separation of charges across the cell membrane of an excitable tissue. A separation in charge means there is a potential to work, and this is measured in volts. This also represents the measured value of charge. Electrochemical gradient is the combination of the concentration gradient, which is moving ions from high to low, and the electrical gradient, which moves ions based on its charge. Opposite charges will move on attraction forces, and the electrical gradient will move on repelled forces. Conductance is also an important principle to understand. The conductance of any ion is just its ability to flow across a cell membrane. The more flow, the more conductance across the membrane. Now let's discuss the different type of ion channels. There are ungated or leaky ion channels, voltage-gated channels, and ligand-gated channels. Leaky ion channels are always open and very useful when determining the resting membrane potential of a cell. Ion moves are dependent on the electrochemical gradient. Voltage-gated channels are channel-dependent on the membrane potential voltage to determine if the channel should be in the open or closed state. And lastly, the ligand-gated ion channel depends on a ligand connecting to its receptor to be in its open state. There is one exception of the three receptor type. It is the NMDA receptor, which is both a voltage and a ligand-gated channel. The channel is blocked by magnesium, but when the membrane potential becomes less negative than -70 mV, the magnesium block is removed, exhibiting voltage-gated channel characteristics. The NMDA receptor also exhibits ligand-gated channel characteristics. Glutamate and aspartate are the ligands required to open the channel once the membrane potential becomes less negative. The resting membrane potential is a simple concept. The resting membrane potential for a nerve is -70 mV, while for striated muscles it is -90 mV. If these values become more positive or less negative, this will result in an action potential. The number of leaky ion channels for potassium in excitable tissues are high, resulting in a high potassium conductance. Because of the high conductance of potassium, it is a big factor in the depolarization and hyperpolarization. The high potassium conductance causes potassium to leave the cell, allowing it to move towards the equilibrium potential for that ion, which is -95 mV. The cell goes from -70 mV to -95 mV, hyperpolarizing the cell. Decreasing the conductance of potassium will move the equilibrium potential away from -95 mV, making -70 mV less negative, while depolarizing the cell. The high conductance of potassium can also be affected in the case of hyperkalemia and hypokalemia. In hyperkalemia, the large amount of potassium in the extracellular prevents potassium from leaving the cells as much, causing decreased conductance, which results in a depolarization. The opposite will happen with hypokalemia, causing an increase of conductance leading to hyperpolarization. The key for understanding this concept is understanding what is happening with high conductance and how hyperkalemia and hypokalemia affects the conductance. The conductance for the other ions such as sodium, chloride, and calcium are low at resting membrane potential due to very low leaky ion channels. Hope this all made sense. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this video, and please hit the like button if you liked this video. Also subscribe to this channel and turn all notifications on to get notified when new videos are uploaded. Feel free to comment with what topics you want me to cover next. And last but not least, share this video with a friend.